Hello everyone, Dom here. Welcome to Production Lab, and in this video I'm going to talk about 3 mistakes that you can avoid when arranging strings. Let's get started. Arranging strings can be a lot of fun. Everybody loves strings, but there are some pitfalls, there are some mistakes that you can avoid to make your string arrangements sound way better. The first one that I'm going to talk about in this video is not separating your string sections. And by that I mean when you're orchestrating for strings, you typically have violins 1, violins 2, violas, cello, and the contrabasses. Now, sometimes you might be orchestrating just violins, violins 2, violas, and cello, so you might not have contrabasses, but let me show you what a difference it makes if you start orchestrating all those instrument sections separately. I'm going to play the same exact arrangement using one single patch by Iconica Ensembles. Let me show you this. This is an Iconica Ensembles full patch. So this is a strings full ensemble. And then I'm going to play the same exact arrangement while having all the elements separated. So let's listen to this single MIDI file with all the instruments all together. This doesn't sound bad at all. Actually, it sounds great. But let me show you the difference that we can achieve when separating our different sections. What I have here on top is I have the same arrangement, but this is separated. So I have violins 1, and in this case, I'm using the Iconica sections and players. So I have the violins 1 standard. Then I have violins 2, which is the violins 2 standard patch from Iconica sections and players. Then I have the violas, the cello, and I have a cello divisi section here to separate the voices, and the basses. So now let's listen to this arrangement with all the instruments separated. And one more time, the full. Separated. What we achieve by separating all the elements is a more three-dimensional sound. We have more control over the different voices in terms of volume, in terms of panning. You can hear how much wider the sound is when we have all the different sections separated. For example, let's say I want to highlight this cello here. Let's listen to the cello. What I can do is I can automate the level of this cello while I'm playing and record this automation. Let's do this. And I can do the same thing with the first violins, the second violins, the violas. When we have an interesting line, we can do a little bit of volume automation and we can make this shine. This is something you cannot do if you have all the string sections all together like this. See, the cello are lost. You can't hear the melody very clearly. It sounds a little bit mushy. It sounds a little bit blurred. So for example, here we have this counter melody played by the violas, so I can listen to this very clearly here. where in the full arrangement, it's still there, but we can't really hear it. So I would say if you're at a pinch and you want to lay down an idea, there's nothing wrong with playing all the sections in one MIDI channel. But if you want the best results, I would highly suggest you separate those sections one by one and play them independently, and also have different dynamics for each section. For example, here in the violas, you will see that my CC121 mode wheel automation is a little bit different to my violins, for example, because I want to bring out different parts of each section depending on the arrangement. Even if you don't have a library that has separated string sections like Iconica sections and players, you can still use, for example, a library like Iconica ensembles and still separate the channels when you're arranging. Now, the second mistake that you can very easily avoid is not paying attention to how the voices work with each other. Sometimes you have voices clashing with each other. Sometimes you have lots of unison notes played one after the other that can result in a poor sound, or you could have like parallel fifths and parallel octaves, which of course is not a mistake on its own. For example, here I have the violins playing the part in octaves, nothing wrong with that. But if more than two voices play things in octaves or in parallel fifths or in unison, sometimes the result can be very poor. So what I would always do is I would play each one of these voices against each other. For example, let's start with the violins, 1 and 2. No surprises there, they play the same melody in octaves. Let's try the violins one and the violas. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now let's try the violas and the cello. Let's try the cello against the cello divisi. See how this note sticks out? That's because both the cello and cello divisi went into unison. And this already sounds really poor. Check this out. So now what I can do is I can go and open both of these parts and try and correct this voicing here. Let's play it. So yeah, this A here is played by both the cello and the cello divisi. So in this case, I'm going to change this note to something else. For example, I can go for a C sharp. And of course, there are no rules, but I would totally advise that you check every voice against the other voices so that you make sure that they sound interesting, there are no clashes, and they don't sound boring. And the third mistake I want to talk about in this video is the use of over-quantize. When it comes to strings, one of the things that I found works the best is the less quantization, the better. Even with parts like this. I have this spiccato part from the Strings Low ensemble from Iconica Ensembles. Let's listen to it. And this was played live on the keyboard. As you can see, when I open my key editor here, you will see that it's definitely not quantized. If we try and quantize this, let's quantize this section. Let's hit quantize and let's listen. First of all, it sounds a little bit mechanical. And if you want a realistic string arrangement, you don't want that. more often than not, unless you are working with a very precise pop track. The other problem is that if I add the click track now, listen to how this sounds. I think you can clearly tell that the strings are coming a little bit after the click. So they're a little bit late, always. This is because with all string libraries, we compensate for the bow. So the attack of the bow comes first, and then we have the body of the sound. And in general, strings are not drums. You can't really over-quantize strings and expect them to sound good, because there's always going to be a little bit of compensation for these timings. So when we play the strings live, subconsciously, we're compensating for this. So if I play this, I immediately compensate for the attack of the bow. So I'm going a little bit behind the click. So I'm playing in advance. And if I recorded this, you would see that all the notes would be shifted a little bit to the left. They wouldn't be exactly on the grid, but they would sound way, way better and way more in time than if I quantize them. Let's listen again. And now let's undo the quantize that we did. See, this sounds way, way more in time than the quantized version. So don't go trigger happy with quantize when it comes to strings. They are not an instrument that translates well when it comes to quantize, even if you're playing staccatos, spiccatos, or of course if you're playing tenutas, long notes, and legatos. If you avoid these 3 things that I showed you here today, I guarantee you your string arrangements will sound so much better. If you found these tips useful and you enjoyed this video, let us know by subscribing and liking this video, and also leave us a comment on what you'd like to see me do next. I'll see you in the next one. Have fun, and bye-bye.